Welcome back to The Silly Kitchen. I'm Sylvia, and today I'm going to talk about food photography and the equipment that I have and love to use. So if you're looking for upgrades to your camera equipment and shooting food photography, check this out. If you're new to the channel, you might not know that my profession is in photography, and The Silly Kitchen is a passion project that I started just over a year ago. With that, I wanted to share with you kind of my journey and where I've been and what equipment now that I have that I love to use, and maybe some recommendations here and there on what you might want to purchase. So over the years, 15 years or so, maybe even longer, I don't want to age myself too much, I started dabbling in photography, and like most new photographers, I bought a Canon digital DSLR, and it came with a kit lens, and I bought an extra zoom lens, and that was that. It was maybe $1,000 for all of it, and I thought I was ready to go. And for a beginner, it was awesome. The kit lens that came with it was an 18-55. It was a very basic little tiny zoom lens, and then I bought like a 300mm for the far away shots. And I learned a lot. I learned how to use my camera on manual. I learned about lighting and white balance and depth of field, and really got the knowledge that I needed to use a digital camera properly before I started thinking about spending more money on equipment. Fast forward, it's been years and years and years, and now I am primarily shooting commercial work for my clients, which 50% of that includes a lot of food photography, chef portraits, catering events, so many different things in that food industry. And I wanted to share with you my knowledge about what my favorite pieces of equipment are that I have for that. So as I mentioned, Canon, I started on Canon, and once you develop kind of a love for a brand and you start spending and investing money, you kind of stay with it. So I did. I've always been a Canon DSLR user, and over the years I've had many cameras. And when my career really started to take off, I invested in the 5D series camera body, and that is a full frame camera, and I've never looked back. I had cropped sensors before, and even the 7D came into my life for a little while, which is a cropped sensor. It was great for video, but for photography, I just couldn't get used to it once I had that 5D series. Right now, I am using the 5D Mark IV, which I think is fantastic. I love everything about it. And more importantly, the lenses that you use for food photography are going to be what really gives you the style that you want. Absolutely learn on the basic stuff, learn your settings. But if you are looking to do an upgrade, which my favorite lens that I own is a 24-70 Canon lens. The one that I have on here is a 4.0 f-stop. But I did also purchase one before this, the exact version of this lens made by another supplier, Sigma, which fits the Canon cameras, and I had that one in a 2.8 lens. So Sigma was a bit cheaper, let's just say it. It was cheaper than buying the Canon lens, and that's why I initially went for it, because I just didn't want to blow a huge budget yet. But it was a great lens, and I still have it and I still use it. I'm actually filming with it right now. But it's beat up. It's been used and abused over many years and hundreds and thousands of photos. So then when I upgraded, I got the Canon version of it and decided that the 4 f-stop on this one was enough for what I needed it for. If you are not sure what I'm talking about in terms of f-stops and the grades of lenses, then this might be a little far out for you, but if you do know what I'm talking about, then we're following along. So 90% of the time I use my 24-70 for food photography, even for portraits, product photography. It literally lives on my camera body 90% of the time. At that 4 f-stop, turning it all the way down to that, you get these beautiful soft flares in the background of your photo, but still that perfect sharpness right where your focal point is. It's a nice wide lens and you have a little bit of give with the zoom in and out. So it's just so versatile and so beautiful. And the Canon brand on the Canon camera really does allow the right amount of light to come in and that right color that you want when you set up your camera. Now, occasionally, 10% of the time, if I'm doing the math right, 90%, 10%, I have another lens that I really, really love. And it is a 50mm prime lens. And prime lenses means that there's no zoom. It just stays at 50mm. So the only difference that you're gonna have in and out is when you're moving your body or your tripod towards the subject that you're shooting. But this lens has the ability to go down to f-stop 1.4, which means that that background that you have at that level is going to be so blurry, and that depth of field is just going to be so sharp on your focal point and so blurry in the background. It is a different style than using this lens for sure. And I would say it doesn't fit with everything that you're shooting, especially like if I'm shooting overhead photos of food, I would stick to the wider lens. But if I'm getting like nice close-ups and I'm focusing, let's say, on like a strawberry and then the background is really blurry, this is a really great lens to get some of that really cool focal points going on. And I'll show you examples of each lens here where I use the 50mm and I use the 24 to 70mm for the same shot. So you can kind of see the difference in what I'm talking about. Obviously the settings on the camera are completely different for each shot, but it just gives you an idea of what these lenses can do. I hope you enjoyed chatting with me about some camera gear. I am what most people would say a little bit of a minimalist when it comes to gear. I have my 3 favorite lenses, 2 that I talked about today, a couple cameras, tripods, lights, sound systems, things like that. Just kind of the necessities of what I need. I don't want a ton of equipment in my life because I found when I did have that, I didn't use half of it. So pick the lenses and pick the cameras that you want to work with and that you love and stick with it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit different than me cooking a recipe. I'm going to try to do a few more of these where I talk about different food photography gear, how to take pictures, settings. I've got a few things coming down the pipeline. Subscribe if you don't want to miss it, and I'll see you again.